Yes, we do.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Daniel and Samuel, everybody that has been introducing us, and thank you for the invitation. Basically, 2 weeks ago, when you contacted me to participate in the cybersecurity webinar, I wonder myself, because I'm not an expert in cybersecurity, but I'm an expert in global health. And I thought, wow, this is a good opportunity to introduce an expert that will come later. No, is with us Albert from Alberaro, from my own city, Barcelona. And this is a topic that really touches all us. No, and you think, well, maybe tomorrow I will do the homework, no, to protect myself. But this is an important moment. No, that's why I decided to accept. Obviously, I'm quite an expert in global health and digital, but not in cybersecurity. But it will be a pleasure to introduce the why health data is super important nowadays, no? And why we should take care of it very carefully. Not only personal data, which is important, very important, but also global data. And it can be maybe we can think of, oh, well, if somebody really hacks, steals, or make a ransom in some global data, it's not important. Well, it could be important, and we will talk about that in a few moments. Basically, I'm a medical doctor, family doctor by training, and I did during some years, I was treating patients, but then I was very impassioned, very entrepreneur, and I developed some startups in digital health, the first one in translation, and then I moved to Geneva 2012, and I was lucky to collaborate with WHO and other international organizations in different projects. I was lucky to participate, lucky in the aspect of technical aspect during the Ebola pandemic, Zika, and also later in projects related with COVID and others. And I'm in love with global and digital health. We've been lucky to develop many projects around the years that have to do with data collection, neglected diseases. For example, we're developing an app for WHO that tries to facilitate the diagnosis of neglected diseases, or at least the educative version of it, because as you know, artificial intelligence has its pitfalls and its advantages. And we're working in other different digital tools. Mental health is a very important topic. We're also working on that. Aging, palliative care. So we have what it's called the Digital Global Health Company, Universal Doctor, and we're very happy to collaborate with different governments. We are developing the app for the government of Andorra, a personal health record app, which is equivalent of many other apps in different countries, where for the first time citizens can be the center of the system, finally, the users, the patients, and can access their own data, their own healthcare data. It's very important because it facilitates the vision of the lab test, the vision of your clinical history along your history. This is very important. And sorry about that. So we've been lucky to collaborate and co-participate and in more than 38 countries in between 12 projects. And the differentiation, the different approaches of data in different places does not mean that today we have a global threat. Every country has different legislation. Sometimes you have big blocks, like in the European Union, of course, the United States. You have the hyper-compliance aspects of the need to have to follow, to be compliant with these legislations if you are a healthcare institution and so on. But in different places, you will be surprised in some countries how tough the legislation is. But then, in a practical way, the reality of some budgets, aspects, and so on, it really gives room to a lot of weaknesses, possibilities. So it's important to cope and to be proactive in that sense. Very important thing from a global health data point of view is the lack of interoperability in many places along the last 20, 25 years, which we will talk about that maybe later. But interoperability is important, no? And in some places during many years, it was impossible to really transfer, share data between healthcare centers. It's been changing very quickly. For many of you, you know, the FHIR standards and HL7 standards, but also to remind everybody that there are huge data collection systems like the District Health Information System 2, which sends more than 40 countries in Africa and other continents, sending data from the health district systems to the capital, and from the capital to headquarters or to WHO country centers, or to WHO headquarters, or to the regional WHO centers. And it's important because we already we can start to know the number of diagnoses, number of different elements. But other systems like later were implemented, like OpenMRS, others really facilitate the interoperability in some countries that 25 years ago didn't have infrastructure. And it's known in in telecommunications that when you start later, sometimes you have advantages. No, you can be more interoperable more quickly. No, overall vision, but it's important to understand the importance of data and how people are perceiving these risks, no, or these potential risks. No, this is a World Economic Forum survey targeting different type of population in the survey, but obviously people that have access to internet and so on. But in general, you can see that there is medium risk influence perception, no, for a majority of interviewed people about cybercrime and cyber insecurity, no? And it's bigger, that threat, at least in this survey, that, for example, the threat of an infection disease. This is important because in a post-COVID era, I think it's important to remind everybody that 3 years ago, probably infection disease threat could have been seen as a bigger one. But it's still, some people see cybersecurity as an important threat. No? And you can see all the risk perceptions interlink. Big one, not only, of course, state collapse, which is sadly happening in some places now, and of course, inter-state conflict, as we all know, not only the current one between Russia and Ukraine, but only in other states. We must remember that there are many conflicts on all the continents. And the question is that all these threats are important, but all they are interlinked. So more than ever, we must see cybersecurity not only as a health issue, but also basically an important potential collapse of an important supply chain, which could collapse precisely the delivery of goods, vaccines, and other healthcare stuff in a potential new threat of a new pandemic, for example. So everything is interlinked. And of course, here, this is a graphic, a weekend brainstorming between doctors, family doctors, and cardiologists, just putting simple words, buzzwords about what is going on. This is a graphic of 3 years ago, and it's already super old, few months before pandemic. So it's, let's put together the buzzwords, no? Data visualization, electronic medical records, epigenomics, I don't see here blockchain, but could be. I mean, all these things really are important because all of them are interlinked and exponentially. It's not about one technology. What is really important is to understand the potential, exponential possibilities and threats of all, and why data is so important. Why data is so important? Because if you have access to data, big collection of data regarding epigenomics, microbiome, and other pharmacogenetics, that can be very important for a research. If it's for good, amazing. But if this research strong competition, or there is a malignant approach, which thanks God in humanity it's not the mainstream. But I think it's important to understand the possibilities of data and why it's so important to have it for entrepreneurs, for healthcare workers in general, and for technicians, and for staff in the governments. The potentiality is immense. That's why science and technology will transform the health systems, and not only health systems, science in general, in the next decades. And we need that because of the climate change and threats. You can understand from the latest slide, all these things that are so important to understand how we can deliver a better aging preparedness, how we can really have a better safe care, etc., how we can monitor, of course, always in a voluntary ways, chronic disease, etc., how we can invent and discover new devices and new medicines, etc. You know that with AI now, you can scan 7,000-8,000 solutions, medical drugs for a potential disease treatment in 1 hour, okay? So obviously, all these things then need to be put in the typical pipeline of discovery, but all these things are important. That's why it's so important that not only for research, for geostrategic reasons, but also in this wall of humanity care, on this wall of international organizations, Red Cross, and thank you for Albert, he has explained me, and later he will have a graphic on that. Red Cross was attacked, okay, was hacked. So in that sense, the data of Red Cross, somebody could think, well, why it's, who would dare, who would dare this neutral organization that really helps to help people in the conflicts, during conflicts, and this neutral actor respect everywhere in the world, precisely. And the lesson here, as you will see later, they were very transparent and they were very clear which information was accessed and the quantity of information and on the data, that were data sets copied or exported. Yes, they were, and for some people that potentially could be important, and we hope that it's not people who are in the middle of conflicts, but in transparency, it's important, and that's why all data in hands of international organizations, governments, it's super important. We need, by the way, more and more data, and just to have into account that not only the personal health data will be important to empower yourself, but also the data collected by institutions, by governments, is also important. And by the way, the quantity of data, just to finish, that we can really generate for healthcare, not only as a reactive healthcare, to have a proactive healthcare, because as you know, it's unsustainable, the way we are trying to deliver healthcare in the world in a reactive way, unsustainable. So there will be a lot of preventive data, prevention data programs, which that is very important. And the data of you today can be totally different, the data of you in 1 month, your epigenomics, your data. So the concept of data will start to change very quickly. And it's important to preserve your data, but more important is to understand the dynamics of your data. So it will be important to know exactly how is your data in a dynamic way. In some way, there's some ID, like your iris scan of things that it's biohacking of that could be really reversible for always. But it's important to understand all these concepts and to deliver more data to the systems to contribute to have a better healthcare system. And with that, I give the word to my colleague Albert, who is a specialist in cybersecurity, and thank you very much for being and in attending that call. Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm going to share also my presentation. Is it okay? Can you see it?
Not
No?
yet. Yes.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. So maybe I did it. Sorry. Doesn't work?
No worries.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I start again because... Okay, sorry. It was my mistake. I think it's okay now? Is it right now?
Perfect.
See it?
We all see
Okay.
the screen. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for the beginning. So again, good morning, everybody. Thanks a lot to Sarah, to Daniel, to Jordi, to Unitar for the invitation to participate in this webinar. Let me just briefly introduce myself. My name is Albert Aro. I am a cybersecurity expert, mainly in the area of governance, capacity building. I currently work in the Cybersecurity Agency of Catalonia as Chief Information Security Officer for the public healthcare in Catalonia. And also, as you said, I am member of the e-health security experts group in the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity since 2017. And I also collaborate with other international organizations. Let's start with the title of the presentation. What is cybersecurity? No? Well, cybersecurity in global health. And what is cybersecurity? No, cybersecurity is more or less, I will say, the practice that deals with all the aspects to protect the assets that mean something to you from cyber threats. And we'll see later what are these cyber threats. And why is important global global health, sorry. And Jordi has explained the importance of data in global health, and a cyber threat can have as a consequence the disruption of a healthcare treatment, the leak of personal data, and even put at risk human life. And that is clearly important. That is clearly important. To be frank, this is a very broad subject, and it has been very challenging to prepare this presentation and to summarize everything, because honestly, I would like to share plenty of things with you. My objective for today is to give you an overview of cybersecurity, and in particular, the risk related to public health. We agreed with Jordi to leave time for questions, so we can go more in depth to the matters that interest you more after my slides. I don't pretend to bring you all the answers about cybersecurity. I just expect to raise curiosity, and that you will have after this presentation a lot of questions. Because for me, the success of a presentation is the number of questions that comes after it. My structure for the presentation will be to give you a brief description of cybersecurity, to present an overview of the main threats for public health, and finally to share with you what could be done from my point of view in an organization to face cybersecurity risks, and also at the end adopt a list of basic guidelines. So let's talk a bit more about what is cybersecurity. In general, the term computer security has been replaced by cybersecurity by default. Now everywhere, instead of saying IT security or security, we just say cybersecurity. And it was traditionally defined as the measures and controls that ensure confidentiality, availability, and integrity, mainly. But most of the time, also authenticity and non-repudiation. We can say later what that's all this was mean. And the trend now is to focus in implementing cybersecurity measures and controls that are specific for the threats of your organization, not implementing the whole catalog of measures. The idea is to make a risk analysis, to establish a cybersecurity posture, identifying what are the main threats, what are the security gaps, and then to implement the priority controls and measures to reach an acceptable risk exposition. It is important to understand that the incidents will happen sooner or later. And the objective is not to avoid an incident. The objective is to minimize the impact. It's the idea is to be able to recover what are the more important services for you in the time that is acceptable for your organization. The situation of organizations are very different, and so is the situation of the countries. For example, I remember a situation where there was a due diligence in a company in a country that I won't tell which was. And there was a question regarding the continuity plan. And someone asked, do you do simulations of disruption of power supply to test your continuity plan? And the answer was quite simple. We don't need to make simulations. It happens very often. So it's different from other parts. No, so you have to adapt the measures to the reality of the country and the organization. So now let me share with you some figures and numbers about the initial threat landscape for the health sector in which I participated. In the left side, you can see a figure with the numbers of the incidents that were collected from January 2021 to March 2023. And the total number of incidents analyzed were 215. And what you can see on the right is the targeted organizations, and the organizations, as you can see, that were more affected were hospitals with 42% of the total incidents. And also, if you add to hospitals other healthcare providers, in total you have 53%. But we have also health authorities, bodies and agencies with 14%, and pharmaceutical industry with 9%. So if we look at the types of threats and the types of incidents that we had during this period of time, we see that the health sector heavily relies on data that is personal and sensitive nature. And so the potential disclosure can have severe consequences. And this is evidently an appealing target for cyber threat actors. So if you look at what are the primary actors, there are two main actors that emerge. The first and predominant group consists of cyber criminals that honestly the objective is a financial game. Their motivation by money. It's 53% of the total incidents. And the second group comprises activist organizations motivated by ideological reasons, aiming mainly to carry out denial of service attacks on healthcare organizations. An incident can affect different kind of assets in a healthcare organization, and there are different kind of assets that you can find, since personal data, IT systems, health information systems, etc. And if you look at the figure on the right, you can see the types of consequences. Breach of data, no, the leak of data, the everything that is related to the breach of personal data, treatments, etc. It's the highest. The 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 incident that happens more often in this study. It was 43% of the cases, but also disruption of services not related to healthcare and the disruption of healthcare services were also very important. And this will include when there is for example, a ransomware attack, and a hospital has to send the the, uh, the derivations to other hospitals because they are not able to attend everything that they do normally. So let's now focus on the three main types of threats, which are ransomware, data breaches, and also denial of services. And let's start by ransomware. That is the one that is more in the press, and honestly, is the one that has more impact. More impact. In one of the biggest in the last years is the one that happened in Ireland. In Ireland, in May 2021, the Health Service Executive, that is an organization in Ireland, public healthcare services, that includes 4,000 locations, 54 acute hospitals, and over 70,000 devices, was subjected to a severe attack that lasted several months. On the 18th of March, a malicious software infected a workstation. That is what we call the patient zero. That it starts there. And the malware infection happened because someone opened an Excel file that has received in an email, and then that Excel file included a malicious software that infected the organization. They didn't think at the beginning that it was so important, but well, they were working on this incident for 4 months, and they were lucky because there was a release of the decryption key 2 months later, and on the 20th of May, and they were able to have an accelerated recovery. And they were very transparent because there is an external report about everything that happened in that incident. And it is said that it is unclear how much data could have been lost if they didn't have this decryption key. Another cyber attack that has been in the press a lot, at least here in Barcelona, in Spain. It was the one of the clinic in March this year. I remember because they called me on a Sunday morning. I was with my kids in a playground. And well, it was quite important because they suffered an attack that it made that the all the technology didn't work on Sunday and on Monday. Then after that they started 2 days. Well, there are plans and things were improving, but 150 interventions were cancelled. Between 2,300 and 3,000 external consultations also were cancelled. You can see here in the picture a photograph from the incident where you can see that they were forced to work with pen and paper. And so, how it works? What's ransomware? How it starts? How it what's the procedure? What's the procedure? If you look at this at the left, it's a picture from 2016, but the the idea hasn't changed from that time. Other things have evolved, but the basic idea remains the same. The thing, the ransomware normally starts with the steal of a credential with a phishing or whatever. It could be a basic credential of one normal user, and it is more difficult, but or a credential from someone that has some privileges. And so other times also they exploit a vulnerability of systems that are exposed to internet, the VPN or the email service, etc. And so when the criminal has this credential, it takes some time to analyze what is in the organization. He does a lateral movement, he moves, he understands where he is, and he deploys persistence. It means that he deploys something to be able to be always connected to there. And when he knows that he has the control of something that is really important, and that he's able to launch ransomware and to make a lot of pain, is when he starts. He starts the deployment of ransomware when he normally has the credentials of the system administration, and normally also when he has control of the Active Directory, and so he can access the whole organization basically. You have to see also that now they ask, in addition to the ransom, for the decryption key. Also, normally they make a double extortion or triple extortion. It means that normally they steal the data, and they threat to publish the data unless you pay, or even in some cases they contact directly the final users or the patients, and they ask for money directly to them, because they have directly this confidential information. Another thing that is important too is that the time for deployment in relation with the initial access is continually decreasing. Some time ago, it could happen 2, 3, 4 months before deployment. I mean, from the time there was this credential that was stolen, and from the time of the deployment. But nowadays, it could take 1 or 2 days. Here there is a study from IBM that shows the evolution from 2019 to 2021. Okay. And healthcare organizations, to be honest, are reluctant to publicly admit impacts on patient safety. However, some studies show that delays in treatment, operations cancelled, or diversion to other facilities can have an impact. There is a study from Poneman Institute published in January 2023, this year, on the impact on ransomware on patient safety, that shows that ransomware attacks result in a significant increase in complications from medical procedures. More than half of respondents, 53%, say it resulted in a disruption to patient care. The most adverse event being the increase in patients transferred or diverted to another facility. Let's talk a bit now about data breaches. Jordi explained what happened to the Red Cross, and I agree. They were very transparent, and for me, it's an important thing. No, some organizations sometimes are afraid to explain what happened because they don't want to to show no that they were vulnerable, etc. But my experience is that it's very good to explain very transparently and very clear and very quick what happened to your organization, because it makes makes the public to be confident with you. And so, of course, then you have to make actions and improve things. But it's important to be transparent. And in this case, my opinion is that they were. In February 2021, there was a massive breach involving a French company, Dedalus, and 500,000 people was affected. The name, social security number, the doctor, date of examination, medical information, and everything was released on internet. There was a sanction, an administrative fine of 1.5 million euros that was imposed. Another example is a data breach of a Finnish psychotherapy center that affected thousands of patients with high repercussions. The incident affected very sensitive information, and many patients suffered extortion directly. They received emails with a demand in Bitcoin of around 200 euros to prevent the contents of their discussions with therapists being made public. Here also there was a fine of around 600,000 euros for violating GDPR, and the entity was bankrupt in February 2021. In April this year, the District Court of Helsinki sentenced the former CEO of the center to 3 months of prison for data protection crime. So let's move on. Here, this is a graph from the United States where you can see the data breaches of more than 500 records, because there is an obligation there for the organizations of healthcare about when there is a breach of more than 500 records. As you can see, the evolution is going up. We have more and more data breaches. Let's talk briefly also about the denial of service attacks. And in Kenya, it was this summer, they also suffered a DDoS attack, which affected several services from the government, and also the patient portal, and so they suffer from this. DDoS attacks or denial of service attacks target system and data availability. Yeah, and these attacks occur when a system or service is not able to access relevant data because the services have been exhausted. There are different kinds of strategies from the criminals that are used, and but basically they overload the components of the network infrastructure. And so in the beginning of this year, we had also some attacks in Spain, also in some other countries, by actions undertaken by pro-Russian activism. That is also true that most of the times these attacks, at least from my experience, have less impact compared to ransomware attacks, because normally they affect the information that is on the web, could be public, irrelevant. It's normally less important, but in some cases it could be also an important incident. In other sectors, these attacks are more important in media sectors, etc. Can have more consequences. And so how it works? The attackers or the criminals use botnets. And what is a botnet? Botnet it's a network of computers that is controlled by the attacker. And this network of computers could be your computer, has been compromised before. He has a command and control server that is able to tell these computers to do something. And so this huge number of computers send different kind of messages, and they start with one type of message, and then they evolve to other type of attacks. When you from the other side leave up the virus. And so it was like this. There are strategies, and they try to get your service down. Here are some examples of attacks of this type, and also one of that happened in Costa Rica, where you can see how was the evolution of the attacks during the days, and the different attack vectors, etc. And so, once we have seen this the definition of cybersecurity, and we have seen a bit of what are the main cyber threats we have today, let's see what we could do in an organization to implement a cybersecurity strategy. So it's just my proposition. Of course, it's very high level, and there are a lot of guidelines that also could be used. The starting point for me is to have a strategy and to define a program. It's very important that cybersecurity is something that had to be led by top management. It's something that has to be in the board of the company or in the board of the organization. Ideal way of doing this is to have a paper signed by the chief executive officer defining what is the program of cybersecurity with the budget, etc. Also, what are the standards that has to be compliance, regulations, etc. And one important thing also is to have this organization to be able to follow and to deploy this strategy. You could have, for example, a committee with a representative of different stakeholders of the organization. And then you have to communicate. Everyone in the organization has to be aware of this, and you could start with an initial diagnosis. Before auditing, I would recommend to implement the key measures and controls, because if you already know something, it's better to implement it before doing the auditing. And the methodology is basically as in other IT services, plan, do, check, act. No identification of mitigation actions, implementation, check, the act, etc. And cyber exercises. Cyber exercises can be seen as something complex, and maybe some organizations think that it's too much effort. Well, my experience is several exercises are needed to identify gaps and to train the team in cybersecurity response. It is very important to be able to respond quick when there is an incident. Testing a response plan to check the capabilities of an organization to face a cyber attack can be seen as time consuming and that requires a certain level of maturity. However, if it is well done, and adapted to a specific case of the organization can be a very good way to identify priority actions. And it is very important not to check not only the capabilities of the IT guys, but also that decision makers and public relations officers that are key players are also prepared in case of a cyber crisis. Because as Jordi said also, a quick and transparent and well-established communication strategy could be very important for the image of the organization in case of an incident. And as Gils said, preparation is key to success. Recovery is the key to survival. And let's just finish. I don't know how I am of time. I think I'm a bit late. No, yeah, I think I've been a bit too long. So just a list of recommendations or basic guidelines. Keep the system and programs updated. One of the vectors that is more used is vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities are solved with updating the system and the programs. So when you receive an email from someone you don't know and is offering you €1 million, well, maybe you can be suspicious of that. And think also that phishing is more and more sophisticated. They can use they can use information that seems real. I've seen fraud attacks that use documents that were almost the same that the real one. Antivirus, updated, backup. Think that if you have something, if you have an incident, the most important thing is to have the information somewhere and to have it offline. There is a rule 3-to-1. Well, maybe it's not for everybody, but at least for important services, yes. But this 3-to-1, 3 copies, 2 different technologies, and 1 offsite. Secure connections. It's better to have the 3G connections for 4G connections that are free Wi-Fi, and if not, use a VPN. Multiple factor authentication. Honestly, passwords is from the last century. We have to forget about using only passwords, or at least use strong passwords, because it's very easy if you use a weak password to break your systems. External supports, try to encrypt it, because if you lose it, well, you can lose important information. If you use engineering, social networks, think that maybe there are social engineering threats, and so be prepared for that. And so also, if you treat confidential information, treat it as you would like your information to be treated. And also, finally, double check online transactions. It's so easy to impersonate someone. Don't be paranoid, but apply common sense. And that's all. Thanks a lot for your attention. This is also my email. You can contact me after this, after today, if you have any further questions also.
Thank you both, Dr. Jordi Serrano Pons and Albert Haro Abad, for this great presentation. I learned a lot personally. And yeah, and for all these insightful inputs that you shared with us with these presentations. Now I let my colleague Daniel Nazarov from Unitar to moderate the discussion and also share the questions that some of the participants shared with us. Thank you, Daniel.
Indeed, thank you very much, Sarah, and allow me to please reiterate our appreciation for Dr. Jordi Serrano Pons, also Mr. Albert Haro Abad, for these very insightful comments. I especially enjoyed the last slide, which showed the list of weak passwords. It was both at the same time educative, but also quite entertaining, because I think at a certain point in our lives, we all had a password that was quite similar to that. We've got quite a large amount of questions, so I don't think we'll have time to go through all of them, but I'll pick some of the more relevant ones with your permission. So I'll start with the first one, which either of you can feel free to answer, or both of you can also feel free to answer this one. It's from Farouk Salangi, and the question goes, how has the awareness of cybersecurity among public health professionals improved, and what educational or training initiatives have contributed to this awareness? Or rather, we can also ask the question, how can education or training contribute to this awareness?
Yeah, I can go. Maybe after that, Jordi, you can say.
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of strategies. My experience is that the more real things you do, the better ways to train people. No, I explained a bit that I truly believe in cyber exercises. No, and creating a scenario that could happen in the future, and ask people to react and to think about that. Work with groups of maybe 10 people. They work together and try to be confronted to a real situation that could happen. And for me also, it's important not only to train IT people, but also all the whole organization, because everyone has a role in cybersecurity. All of us has to be aware of risks. And another thing that I am thinking also that we use also in my organization, is to define a strategy where you define small pieces of information that you send every week, for example, for a period of time, for a 2-month period, and you send an image that is open in your computer when you switch on of the network, and you receive a clear message with an image and one sentence. And so it's quite intrusive, but it's a good way. Normally people likes it. If it is well done, it could be also a way to have to send a small pieces of information with a regular period. What for me is important, it's not to train only once and forget about that. The idea is that you have to train continuously the people. No? It's something that we need also for our personal life. Because we suffer also some risks in our personal life.
Yeah, I think that if the question is related basically to public health professionals, obviously they work with databases. They should work with databases. They are, some of them, carrying clinical trials or populational studies. Obviously, this information is quite sensitive. So I think they can't really be embracing that. But many people in many healthcare institutions or healthcare systems, sometimes they have real problems to have proper IT infrastructure. So sometimes you are talking with some public health professionals in some countries that they don't have access to a minimum standard set of things. So for them, it's more important other problems. But if you're talking not about public health, you're talking about clinicians. You know that clinicians are tired, are bored. There's some hiring ads in the States where they say, oh, come here in the middle of Arkansas and we'll put you somebody that will write for you on the clinical history, because they don't want to write in the clinical history. So they are burned. So if these people that normally, these clinicians, normally some of them are quite tired of being writing. On top of that, you ask them always to work on more programs. They are always reluctant. on top of that, you tell them that you have to be knowledgeable, or you have to know, it's very difficult. But as Albert said, once they realize that if they are not quite consequent and compliant, they could be days writing in pens and paper, or they could lose a lot of meetings, schedules, appointments, whatever, with patients. Then they say, wow, this is a new world I need to enter into. No? So at least to be part of the organization, minimal rules set the standard, and then they would be integrated. So there could be different ways to engage all these different people, but basically transversal indications and rules from the organization, and it will depend who you have. If you have clinicians, basically, you have clinician researchers and so on. I'm talking about one of the other questions, no, generative AI. No, Daniel, there is a question in the very nice question. No, they are talking about what do we think about the generative AI like ChatGPT. Well, this is a discussion that could last days, but as always, the one thing is the quality of information behind these things, correct, and how these things can be can be pretending in the right word in English, pretending to give you a right information, and it's not good enough. There is not good base evidence and so on. It's not the same. The last version I played last week with the last version, ChatGPT 4, it's a paying version, and all the information had a link with the article reference, no, which is quite interesting in comparison with the version 2 months ago I was using. Question is, apart from that, these things, if the generative AI is used mainly for research purposes in the future, for things, well, the threats in some clinical acts immediately, they don't seem much a big threat, but many doctors, at least some colleagues in Europe and in the States, I've seen, and some colleagues also, I talked with them last week in Morocco, they're using a ChatGPT to explain patients some difficult disease explanations in a more standard vocabulary, no, or easy way of, and it wasn't unexpected capacity, but it works quite well. And of course, in that sense, if you're using a tool to explain people of low literacy the disease, it will be very difficult that tool really lies to you or hacks information, because you are the expert and you are using that as a reference guide only. So we could discuss about many hours, but yeah, just to make some comments about that.
Thank you very much indeed for this. We are slowly starting to run out of time, so we'll have one more question, and then with the participants' permission, we've prepared a small poll for them, asking for their feedback and also a little bit information about themselves. So this final question is from Dean Batuma, and it reads as follows. In today's fast-paced world, recent health crises have shown us the importance of connecting health supply chains to logistics and data systems. However, we must also be aware of the system's cyber threat. I believe it would be great if UDTAR and Empower School of Health could create a pioneering master's program that combines data management and cybersecurity expertise with health leadership. This program would attract professionals, experts, and leaders who can protect health data and ensure the functioning of global health supply chain in our interconnected world. What are your thoughts on this idea?
That goes for you, no? Also, I mean, obviously, there is a need, no, Albert, of a lot of education. What do you think?
Yeah, I fully agree that I will say just two things. There is a lack of professionals in cybersecurity. That's clear, that the statistics that shows that and that projects in the future. So really there is a need for more professionals and for people that knows that are dedicated to cybersecurity. And the other thing is that supply chain is really one of the main risks for the near future. Well, maybe you have not heard about it, but it has been important incidents in the past. Where there was a tool that where we used by a lot of organizations, and this tool was had a backdoor, and with this backdoor, if you were using this tool, a criminal could have access to your network, to your system. So it could also happen it can also happen in health with the supply chain, with all the actors that you have. And supply chain, it's definitely one of the top risks for the future, because it's not only to be prepared and to be prepared in your organization, but also be aware that your suppliers can be the weakest point, and someone can enter to your organization by them. No, it's really I agree, and I will support this kind of empowered school of health, of course.
Thank you very much for this answer, and we'd be glad to also see you again as a visiting professor in the master's program, hopefully. Okay. Dear participants, we have run out of time. Just before you finish, we would be very grateful if you could simply answer these questions that should appear on your screen before you leave. Please let me know if you can see the question. Looks like it disappeared. Let's try again. All right, so we have already 2 answers. 2 people who have answered are from Asia, and we're starting to get the results. 36% it seems so far of the people who have answered are from global health, 21% from cybersecurity, and 27% from data management. So that's exactly what this webinar really was about combining global health with data management. So far, 95% of participants have said that they would be interested in enrolling in courses on health and cybersecurity. 38% of participants are below the age of 30, with 40% between the ages of 30 and 40, with 15% between the ages of 40 and 50. 75% of participants are from Africa, 18% from Asia, 4% from Middle East, and 4% from Americas, with no participants in Australia or Europe. Maybe our European friends are having lunchtime right now. 75% of our participants are working professionals, and 25% are students. And when it comes to educational background, almost 50% of participants have a background in health management, whereas only 2% have a background in cybersecurity. But perhaps this goes back to what Mr. Haro Abad was saying about the shortage of professionals, and perhaps also this being due to a shortage of educational programs in this regard. So thank you very much for having participated in this. I'll be closing the poll. And before closing our webinar, I would like to reiterate and ratify our words of appreciation for Dr. Jordi Serrano Pons and Mr. Albert Haro Abad. Even though I joined in the middle of the webinar, I've been reading some of the comments, and what I have heard has been quite eye-opening to me. So thank you once again, and we hope to see you very soon in the courses that we'll be developing on this topic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.